Hello YouTube, it's Tony. So today I'll show you my story and perspective of when I first returned to Runescape. You know, my memory is pretty vague at this point, so the information may not be very accurate. As for the screenshots, yeah, unfortunately I don't have very many screenshots for this. As I'm really close to 5.4 bill XP, I'd like to recap on this because, you know, my memory will probably fade even further than that. First and foremost, this is not meant to be a returning player's guide. So around 5 years ago, I came back to Runescape. Yeah, it's crazy how fast time flies. I mean, at the time, I was on another 5-year break from Runescape. Now honestly, at that point, I've been thinking of many comebacks. So Tony, what caused you to return to Runescape? At the time just before I was playing Runescape, I was setting up a dating site profile. So you know on the About page section, you get to set what your favorite hobbies or anything you want to put there, right? Well, I ended up putting Runescape as the game I played. Now for some reason what happened was, a 25-year-old girl just ended up asking me for my Runescape username. I was like, yeah, I added her in the game. Even though at the time I wasn't playing RuneScape, I completely pretended I was playing it all along. I mean, a few weeks later, she decided to delete me anyways because, you know, I just kept asking her so many questions. I wasn't surprised by this, I knew this moment would come anyways. Well, when I was checking her total level at the time, it was like 2.3 or 2.4k. She had a lot of 99s, so I was definitely way behind that. I honestly don't care about her nowadays, I've completely moved on, so if any of you are trying to scam me saying, oh this was me, I'm not gonna fall for your trick, just letting everyone know. Either way, this was just the motivation as to how I returned to RuneScape. So the first day I logged in, well, I only had around 1.2k total level. Prior to this point, I've only had 1 month of lifetime membership. I remember the last time I got membership before that point, that was when I was barely in high school. Now the reason why I quit at that time was because I was actually grounded in the last 2 weeks of my membership. I mean, I literally had no motivation to go back to free to play. It was just so exciting at the time, but anyways, that's not what I'm here to talk about. So the very first day I went on to kill moss giants. Just like 2008 or something like that, those moss giants were just really popular. The moment I logged in, I even went to World 3 and it's completely dead. I don't know why, but it seems like most of the free-to-play places have completely died down. So you know what I was wearing? A full set of rune gold trimmed. That was what I wore just before I quit. Honestly, it had a lot of value to me because, I don't know, I just really loved the color of gold, and secondly, this was the only gold piece of armor that I was able to access, well, as a free-to-play player that is. Now obviously I had no idea what dual wield was, and so I ended up using a rune scimitar with a gold trimmed rune kite shield. Now it was no surprise because I didn't even use any sort of abilities. I just simply used auto attacks and killed the moss giants. I loved the big bone drops back in the day, I'm sure a lot of people felt that way too. When I came back to this game in 2014, literally every world was completely dead with hill giants. It just shows you how much impact EOC changed the game. So let's talk about the bond. I didn't know we could buy membership using in-game cash. No seriously, I didn't know it at the time. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of this and I don't exactly remember what I was doing. However, I did make a bond from scratch challenge in 2019 and I will leave that link in the description. What I ended up doing was I was making steel bars for profit. I think I also mined iron ores as well mostly. Now because I had to get 15 dungeoneering in order to get the access box, it required me to do some dungeoneering early on. You see, as soon as you own a rune pickaxe, you can one-shot these iron ores. That's why iron is so profitable back in the day. Now before that point, the reason why my mining was like 60 something was because I used to mine coal for profit back in the very old days. What I'd do was I'd go to the Dwarven mines and then I'd keep mining coal. Of course, I'd use the Falador bank in order to bank. Back in the day, run energy was just so limited. Nowadays, even as a free-to-play player, run energy is almost not an issue anymore. I think the other money-making method I did was I fletch headless arrows. I became a member around 1.5 or 2 weeks later or something like that. The price I bought for the bond was, I believe, 6.3 million. The next section I'll get into are, what exactly did you do early on as a member? There were a lot of things I did, and like I said, my memory is just very vague. I think the main money making methods were I cleaned herbs, and I even did a lot of high alching. I was mostly going after the rune items because they had a buy limit of 100. You'd get like 1k alch every single time. So I also explored a lot of places in member worlds because there are so many places I just haven't explored when I was first a member. I think most of the money making methods were from the RS Wiki. One thing that I really did well was I invested a lot of time for quests and tasks. See, the thing is, if you look at the RS Wiki, a lot of money making methods require some sort of things required. Things like quests, tasks, or even skills. I also trained my stats in the meantime, so that was a huge grind. I was just so scared I'd never be able to maintain a bond. So you know what's funny? Whenever people would beg in the GE, I would just ask them to help me buy Dragonstones for alching. By that I mean buying Dragonstones and then making the Dragonstone bracelets, and pretty much alching them. So when I tried to ask them to buy these Dragonstones, I paid them a minor profit basically. What's also funnier was this. One of those people who begged in GE, I told them, hey, go follow me if you want money. And then what I did was, I took them all the way to the iron ore mine where I worked so hard to get this bond. They were like, F off to me. Oh my god, this was just so hilarious trying to take someone to an iron ore mine telling them, hey, you gotta work for your money, you know? Trust me, I never beg for money, okay? Sometimes you just gotta work for your money. I believe what I was doing was I was cleaning herbs in the GE. Now this clan called God's Chaos invited me. I left a long time ago and I've been there for like 3 years in the clan, but yeah, I still talk to them today. At the time I felt like a complete noob back in the day. I mean, honestly, everyone was way higher total level than me and they've experienced membership a lot there. So I was told about the clan avatar. This was what really motivated me even further to do skilling. The clan on the other hand, they just love bossing way more. Pretty much I led the entire clan in how many times I summoned the avatar. Well, nowadays it doesn't really matter anymore because we have our personal avatars. So I'd like to talk about this. Why didn't you like bossing but you love skilling so much? You know, back in the free-to-play days, there were no bosses. Like, the only choice of making money was just skilling, really. To be fair, every single monster you killed just didn't offer you good profit. Maybe the big bones though, when you used to sell them in the streets for a pretty decent amount. Oh yeah, speaking of which, I used to cut U-logs for profit. I believe they were like 300 GP each back then, and then they just keep crashing and crashing over time. Nowadays they're a complete joke because every single monster drops them, and not to mention we have divine U trees. The other reason why I love skilling was because I never knew about how to AFK skill. Back in the day when you AFK'd for even a couple seconds, for some reason the client would just log you out. This was why I always stared at my screen and I tried to do the most active methods. I don't know why, but I just really love seeing the numbers as a whole. The other reason why I love skilling was because, you know, I just wanted to get my very first 99. Not even after a year I returned, I got max cape. Yeah, so I made an old video on this, and I'll leave that reaction link in the description. I was always motivated to be more and more efficient as time went along. It's mostly just me having the grit and grind to do things like quests, skills, or even tasks. One other thing I was really good at was making money as well. As a matter of fact, I ended up buying the Premier Club for 2015. So really, it costed me around maybe 200 mil or something like that. The very last section I'll get into is, what is my perspective of when I first came back to this game? In general, I think everything was hard to learn at first. You know, I had to spend a lot of hours learning this game all over again, and pretty much spending the entire summer getting caught up with information. To make matters worse, the combat system was just so confusing. I had to keep clicking abilities all the time randomly as a whole. It's funny how the girl who brought me back to this game told me to use momentum. You may not know what momentum is, but it was a combat mode where you would activate, I don't know, rack or something every 2 seconds. Now as for Revolution, I literally didn't know about it until 1 month later. When I realized how powerful abilities were, I just clicked them like I was operating a spacecraft. Now I didn't even care about what these abilities did. In fact, I just didn't even read the description of all these abilities. One other thing I did was I complained a lot. Yeah, you'd be surprised at how much I complained about how everything was just so confusing. Getting caught up is just extremely overwhelming. At the time I hated combat, and yeah, I had a huge banter over my clanmates on skilling versus combat. Why does combating have to be the best moneymaker in the game, you know? That was what I always complained about back in the day. Now as for money or donations, even though I complain a lot, I never truly begged for money or received any donations. Not even 1 month after I returned, I gained 400 total levels. Even when I was young, I had like a huge desire to do the most efficient methods in the game. With that being said, obviously I cannot remember exactly everything, but I think this is a pretty long video anyways. Before I end this video, I'll do a quick giveaway. I'll be giving 1 bond to the most interesting answer, and yes, this will be handpicked by myself. The question is, what caused you to return to RuneScape? Your comment will be pinned if you do win.